Hi, welcome to Tactical OP and Neo's Handguns and Reloading. I'm OP, and there's Neo. Alright, for this video, we're going to be assembling the Sizer deprimer die and setting it up in the press. Really not a big deal. This is the easiest die to mess with. Hornady says when you get the dies to take them down completely and clean the film that is on all these parts off. It's like an oily film, I guess, for packaging or such, to keep them from rusting. Brake clean works really well for that. That's what I used. So get them cleaned off and then start assembling them. Okay, you've got a little replaceable pin in this insert right here. We put that on the end of our zip rod. Run that down tight. Make sure it's snug or this pin will move around and you can break it. Okay. Now we're going to grab this nut for the zip rod. Start that on here. Run that down a ways. Okay. Now this is designed where you can actually just slide it, but really don't like doing that. I don't like the sound of what it's doing to my threads, so this doesn't take much time. This is the way I do it. Is there a right or wrong way? I do not know, but that's the way I do it. Okay. The die body, we'll take a lock ring that's going to lock it into one of our lock and load bushings. Go ahead and run that onto the die body and run it way up close to the top of the die body and turn it up right side up. Okay, because you're going to need to set this fairly deep inside the bushing. Okay, now take your zip rod, the nut, insert it in the top of the bushing, or I'm sorry, the top of the die, and run it down until it's almost bottomed out. Bottom it out, back it off a little bit. Okay, now here's where we're going to set it up. I'm grabbing the zip rod, holding the nut, turning the zip rod. You see the pin starting to come out of the end of the die right here. Okay, now the insert that is holding that pin in place, you do not want that sticking out of the die. You want that recessed in just below the end of this, just inside of it, where you cannot see it if you're holding the die looking straight across. Okay, that's a good preliminary setting. Then kind of snug your nut up finger tight here. Okay, and I'm going to pause the camera for a second so we can position it where you can see the die on the press. Okay, this next step can be done many different ways, I'm sure. Get your lock and load bushing, comes with your press. You can start the die into the bushing before you ever put it in the press, which is what I like to do. So I can run this lock nut down and I can actually lock in the bushing. You could also stick the bushing in the press, turn it and lock it in, and then start the die. It doesn't really matter, either way is fine. This is just the way I do it, so it's a little bit easier to lock in the bushing. Okay, run it up there a pretty good ways, close to your lock nut for the die. Spin your lock nut up against the bushing, kind of snug. Drop it in the first station, which is the one next to this plastic bracket right here that holds the guide rod for your primer shuttle. Drop that in there. Hit a turn, lock it in. Okay, our bushing is now locked in. Alright, now we're ready to set it up. So I'll grab a casing. Back the camera up slightly. Now this is what you want to do. You want to index your press. Pull the handle all the way down. Bring this plate all the way to the top. Okay. Loosen off your lock ring that holds your die to the bushing. This ring right here, loosen that off. Run the bushing down further, or the die further into the bushing until you feel it make contact with the shell plate. Just right when you feel it make contact with it, stop and tighten your lock ring. Okay. I'm not going to lock down the bolt, the pinch bolt for the lock ring yet until we verify that everything's good. Okay. Now we want to bring our plate back down. Place the casing in it. Run it up. Good deal. We got it all the way to the top. Now we're going to set our zip rod. Grab a wrench. Half-inch wrench for this, by the way. It's lock nut for the zip rod. Okay. It did push out my primer, which I wanted it to do, but I am going to slightly set this deeper. Which, to do that, what you just want to run it in a little bit. You'll feel it bottom in the casing and back off a little bit, which is probably pretty close to right where I had it anyway. But I like to do that because sometimes you run through, you're depriming a bunch of them, and you may have to hit one casing twice to get the primer out. But that's all there is to it. This is a very simple die. You don't have to use calipers or anything else to know what you're doing on it. Just that's it. So I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Thank you.